think I pronounced it close enough, and the case for modern CSS.
Technical issue, I have to look at him. Go. Okay, hello everyone. So my name is Hui Jing. I'm a front-end developer based in Singapore. And today, I'm going to be presenting an elevator pitch on the case for modern CSS. Now, how many people here, not a lot of you, but have used CSS in your projects? Okay, that's good. And how many of these memes are familiar to you? Now, personally, I don't like these memes very much. And I recognize that I am very fond of CSS, and I might be slightly biased towards it, but I feel that CSS unfairly bears the brunt of many of such jokes. Perhaps it's a defense mechanism by some developers against something that is outside their comfort zone. I mean, CSS does require a different mental model from programming languages, like, say, JavaScript. Now, the cascade makes some developers uncomfortable. I get that. But I don't see it as justification for pooping on CSS. No, that's just a bit rude. No. So this was a poll by Max Stoiber just 1 week ago. And it's surprisingly disappointing just how many people don't really understand how the C in CSS works. CSS started out as a simple style sheet mechanism which allowed authors and readers to attach style to HTML documents, and over the past 22 years, let's just say, it's evolved quite a lot. In the earliest versions of CSS, it wasn't even meant for doing layout. The specification even provides examples of what CSS would not do on the layout front, and made the list open-ended. But what I like most about the web is that its APIs grow and adapt with the needs and requests of its users, developers like you and I, as well as our audiences. Modern CSS is not a clearly defined term, I'll admit. It's not like there's an age limit where only CSS specifications written after X date make it into this category. No, what I'm referring to is the landscape of what we can achieve right now. There are currently 503 distinct CSS properties in the index, so clearly 5 minutes is not enough to cover them all. Instead, I will highlight 3 of the most impactful CSS features we can use today to supercharge our web designs. So, CSS grid. It's a pretty big CSS thing. Now, in the pre-grid era, we were trapped. Trapped by the fact that our elements always had to line up next to each other. Sure, you could space things out with margins and paddings. Some brave souls even try to wrangle with positioning rules, but that usually just ends up in an avalanche of styles just to move an image to the lower right side of the page, right? CSS Grid gives us a straightforward means to position items on a page wherever we want. If you're new to Grid, it's a 2-step process. You define your grid, and then you place items in it. That's the gist of it. And the beauty of Grid is that it can be as simple as you need, but also as elaborate as you want. You need all of 2 lines for a fully responsive grid. Media queries, not required. And if you need full-scale art-directed page layouts, Grid definitely has you covered as well. Moving on. Now, anybody in the room uses pre-processors in their styles. Cool. One of the key reasons that we use them is the ability to define and utilize variables. But those variables, they are static. You can't change them on the fly with JavaScript because they have to be compiled into CSS to take effect. Custom properties, on the other hand, they're dynamic, and this opens up a lot of possibilities. Now, the top bit is how the styles for this presentation have been set up with my H2 elements styled using the accent color variable. Now, CSS variables behave like any other CSS property, so we can make use of selectors to scope them. So if I change, now I'm going to try to do this live, change the accent color value here to green, you can see that the color has changed, and the other slides, they've also changed. It used to be red, now it's like greenish, but I can also keep it to just this one slide by making it a bit more specific. So this is green, but my previous slides, go back to red. So that's a cool part now about CSS variables. And because they behave like any other CSS property, custom properties can also be defined and used within media queries, something that we could not do with preprocessors. And when used together with a count function, we can build complex values for more complicated use cases, like the values for the transformed properties. And you can't get more dynamic than combining custom properties with JavaScript. With the get property value method, we can access the value of a custom property, and we use the set property method to modify these values at runtime. Lastly, feature queries. Now, they're really the unsung hero of this lot. And browsers started implementing them back in 2012, but they only started to gain traction after Grid was officially shipped, because Grid is a great use case for feature queries. I mean, feature detection in native CSS, what's not to like? We start off with basic styles that work universally across all browsers, then add on styles not per browser, but per feature. Per feature based on what feature we want to use to enhance our designs. And browsers that don't support the feature in question, they simply ignore the entire code block, thus avoiding the issue of half-applied styles breaking your beautiful page. Making use of the cascade is the key strategy here. Universal styles first, so even if the browser does not support feature queries, you're kind of safe. And some time ago, I built a website that uses a number of the relatively newer CSS features like grid, shapes, etc. And I did not modify the code since I launched it. But its design, when viewed in Firefox, has evolved as the browser continues to update itself. For a short talk of 7 minutes, this is my cop-out slide, because each CSS feature I mentioned could warrant a full-length talk on their own. So here's a list of resources that go into each topic with greater depth. So hopefully, I piqued the curiosity of at least one of you to want to find out more. At the end of the day, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the pillars on which the web is built. And there's never any harm in strengthening foundations. So embrace the cascade, and let's build a better web together. Thank you.